So I wanted to give some thoughts today about the next single from the forthcoming I.O. album by Peter Gabriel. This is the 6th track overall to be released from that album. It's titled Road to Joy. Now, back when I began doing these reviews, I posed the question of whether this kind of piecemeal release strategy, song by song by song, month after month, whether that was an artistic strategy or a marketing ploy, right? Whether it was something that was meant to actually kind of mirror or extend the concept of the music, or whether it was just kind of something to get sustained attention for the release. I suppose just the fact that I have been paying such sustained attention as a critic probably answers my question to some extent, though, I don't know that the attention I'm giving it is of much relevance in the scheme of things. But still, I don't mean for that to sound too cynical, because I'm realizing that I am actually probably giving these songs more thought, more consideration than I would have if the whole thing had just been dumped at once. And, we churn through so much stuff now in the world that it's nice, I think, actually, to have some reason to be thinking about these songs in the depth that I have. As always, I'm Hans from Electric Brain, Electric Shadow. We're a contemporary art rock project that blends elements of progressive rock, post-rock, and post-punk. I'll try to put a couple of links to playlists for our albums in this video and description. Now, the song Road to Joy. I listened to the podcast Tabletop Genesis, and the hosts there have been saying periodically that they're waiting for a song from this album. As they've reviewed all the songs, they've talked about waiting for something that has a little bit more buoyance, a little bit more of an up-tempo quality, right? Something like Sledgehammer or Big Time or Steam. And, every time they've said that, I've thought, oh, geez, I hope these guys don't get their wish, right? And I think this song might prove me right a little bit. Now, to be frank, as you can probably guess from my overall aesthetic and how I talk about music on the channel, I'm not personally a big fan of the kind of funky party music version of Peter Gabriel as reflected in those songs. But even by the standard of that type of song, I think this is kind of a weak piece, right? It's designed to be buoyant. It's designed to be, I don't know if it's up-tempo precisely, because everything on this album is pretty firmly really in what you'd call mid-tempo, but it's meant to be the song that has the energy that gets everybody dancing in, the third quarter of the show, right? And I'll grant you that it might work well for that in a live setting. I don't know, but as a recording, I really have to admit that I find it to be by far the least enjoyable and least inspired song from this batch of material, and also, not coincidentally, probably the most derivative of earlier work. As far as that derivative quality goes, the first thing that jumped out at me on listening to this song is, am I crazy, or does the verse vocal melody sound fairly reminiscent of Kiss That Frog? Now, I don't know if other people are hearing this. It would surprise me if they weren't, but I don't really know. I haven't read any other impressions of the song. I try to come into these reviews as clean as I can. I also tend to not read what Gabriel has to say about it, because I do want the songs to, rise and fall on their own merits in my own estimation. But just a quick side-by-side of the two.
Flash, dash, heard your call, bring you back your golden ball. Love calls through the walls, warms the earth wherever it falls.
Now, maybe those aren't note for note the same, but I don't know how people would avoid hearing enough similarity there that maybe you rewrite it or just pick a different song for the album. It's not really helped, I think, by the lyrical references to water. The first few lines in the song include sharp sound, swim around, soak into the brittle ground. The last line of the song is, now we jump into the lake. Kiss That Frog, of course, being a song about a frog with many references to swimming, and particularly the repeated line, jump in the water. I have to admit, when I first started listening to this song, until about halfway through the first listen, I wondered if it was meant to be some kind of explicit sequel or reference to Kiss That Frog, in the vein of, I don't know, like Unforgiven and Unforgiven 2 by Metallica. But that just doesn't seem like the case to me. I don't see any other clue for that beyond just the odd similarity. Now, it's such an obvious point to say, this song sounds like this other song that, I almost hesitate to say it, but I just don't have any way to convey the experience of the thing without getting into that similarity, right? The similarity is so unavoidable and so baffling. And man, of all the songs of his that he could have self-plagiarized, Kiss That Frog, frankly, would not be one I would have chosen or recommended. Then we get to the chorus, which I guess is meant to have that kind of big burst of celebratory energy, pretty much as the chorus in Kiss That Frog does, although to be fair, the melody and lyrics here are different, so from a compositional standpoint, it's not the same, even though structurally it is pretty much the same. And the chorus that we do have here, it doesn't really do anything for me. It just kind of feels generic, like insert the big inspiring chorus here, like any particular set of melody and lyrics would have done about as well, as long as it happened to have kind of a short, punchy quality and have that kind of burst of choral energy in the delivery. I'm particularly underwhelmed here by the lyric, which, is hard to not dwell on because it does appear so often in the song, right? So the chorus lyric, back in the world, we're waking up the road to joy. Now, I've listened a number of times to the song. I've read transcriptions of the lyrics. I'm pretty sure he is saying waking up the road to joy. I don't want to be overly literal, but that just doesn't make any sense to me as a metaphor. How do you wake up a road? The best I could do was to think perhaps, you walk up a road, and if you're walking in a state of waking, perhaps you're waking up the road. I don't know if that's what he was going for. I looked pretty hard through the lyrics to see if there was some kind of other thing that would provide an underlying metaphorical structure where it would make more sense. And the best I can really come up with as an explanation, frankly, is that he was writing the chorus and he had the lines, back in the world, we're the road to joy. He wasn't sure what syllables to put there, and he just grabbed some that kind of fit. I don't want to dwell on this again too much, but it really kind of dominates when it comes along, and just is not effective at all as a piece of writing. I will say, though, it is an interesting song to listen to at the level of arrangement and soundscaping, right? Probably more so, actually, than some of the other songs from this batch that I've thought have been maybe a bit better written, but less interestingly produced. It is all keyboard based, but he does choose some interesting tones. He layers those tones in interesting ways. For instance, the synth sound at the end of the chorus it's kind of ugly, it's kind of awkward, but it adds some textural depth and surprise, and I like it for that. It's a little perverse to put that sound there in this song. I appreciate that perversity. Now, in the second verse, we get some live string work. At least I think that's live strings. And I like that quite a bit too. It sounds organic. It has some propulsion. It weaves in and out of the arrangement in a really compelling way. I like that enough to almost make me forgive some of the lyric writing in the second verse, which again just kind of comes off as clumsy, metaphorically uncertain. The lines, love calls through the walls, warms the earth wherever it falls. Love calls through the walls, I can't help but think of the Phil Collins song, Through the Walls, Phil with the ear to the glass to his ear, up to the wall, listening to people have sex in the next room. That's more than anything what I get from that line, which I don't think is the intention. Love warms the earth wherever it falls. That just sounds like onanism. There's a couple places where there's this very fast descending string line. I quite like that as well. It has this really manic, uncontrolled energy that the song needs a lot more of to really carry off what it's going for in a compelling way, and in a way that feels less like kind of the watered-down descendant of Kiss That Frog or Big Time. As a closing thought, I'd say this. Road to Joy would not be a good song in any context. It's particularly disappointing when, we've had literally half the entire length of my life waiting for a full-fledged new album, and one of the things on that is something that really just seems to be almost kind of a structural placeholder, right? He's put in the mix because as an entertainer, he feels some obligation to have a certain type of song for a particular juncture in the show, for a particular thing in the sequencing of the album based on what people expect. It feels like something that is written to occupy a niche more so than as any kind of, deep-seated expression of his soul. Now, obviously, I can't see into his heart. I don't particularly trust whatever anyone's saying in the publicity about the song on this matter, but the fact that the actual writing feels so recycled and sloppy, and that it feels so stylistically derivative of past things, and that anything that is new musical information is mostly kind of half-baked, those make this song feel more than anything else like something that's been half-heartedly ground out to fill a slot. It feels much more so like that really than anything else in the batch of IO songs that I've heard. I find that impression to be rather depressing, which is quite ironic given the uplifting, or at least intendedly uplifting, nature of the song itself. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news here. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you liked it more than I did. Thanks much for your time, and I'll see everybody next week.